Oh, January in Illinois blows. Hi, Elizabeth here. I am a self-published author and trying to get my writing career back on track, not only with the craft of it, but also with the business side of it. If you're new here, welcome. Don't mind the blanket, guys. I'm super freezing. And I only have a short sleeve shirt on underneath, so I'm cold. For this video, I wanted to think back on my time in college. I've been doing that a lot lately, getting back into the writing and falling in love with it again. I took years worth of fiction writing classes, and I do value what I learned. It taught me a lot, and I still use some of the techniques that I learned. But as a lifelong learner, I have been devouring books and blogs and videos on the craft of writing, and I realized that there were some important steps that were left out of my education. So I came up with a list of the essential storytelling rules that they didn't teach me in college. But before I get into it, hit the like button and subscribe for more tips. Okay. I can't do this with this on. Okay. Rule number 1. Your protagonist has to make decisions. I was taught that your protagonist drives your story. Indeed, yes, they sure do. I was told, make them multidimensional, and it'll be great. Fine, yes, this is important. However, what everybody failed to mention was how to actually do that. So I've been learning that in order for your protagonist to actually drive your story, they have to actually make decisions. And I am not talking about beef or chicken decisions, those small little decisions on like where to eat, what you're doing after work, stuff like that. No, I'm talking about big, serious decisions like red pill or blue pill decisions. The choices have to mean something to your protagonist. The type of decision your protagonist gets to make is dependent on the situations that you put your protagonist in. So, if the situation is high stakes, therefore, your protagonist's decisions will be high stakes. And that causes your protagonist to drive the story in a meaningful way. Okay, rule number 2. Make your story linear. I'm kind of embarrassed about this one because the easiest and biggest piece of advice is make sure your story has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Don't try to get fancy with flashbacks or try to mesh fiction with nonfiction in the same book. I made this mistake a lot. I wanted to be different. I wanted to stand out. Just don't. All you'll do is confuse your reader, and maybe you'll confuse them enough to close the book for good. There is nothing wrong with a linear story. Those are usually the most interesting stories to read. So make the story easy for your reader to follow, and your reader will keep coming back. Rule number 3, not 2, 3. Work backward in your protagonist's backstory. Okay, so every protagonist has to have a backstory, right? So if your protagonist's backstory relates to the plot of your main story, start with how the backstory turned out. This will leave your reader asking the how and why of that situation and how it resolved itself the way it did. For example, I'm currently writing a story on Kindle Vella called Blind Oracle. In that story, my main character, Echo, reveals in the very first scene that she stabbed her husband and lost her kids. So hopefully, as the episodes continue, the reader will ask, Well, why did she stab her husband? And then I'm going to work backward from there, slowly revealing all of the hows and whys throughout the bigger story. So, on to rule number 4. You need to have conflict, and lots of it. Conflict is always a motivator in any story. This is something so basic and so simple that most people don't even mention it when teaching how to write to others. That's exactly what happened to me with my formal education. I was taught, move the plot forward, keep your readers guessing. Okay, cool, right? What they failed to mention was how to do this. Again, the how. Telling me to do something is one thing, but I also need to know how. Conflict, that's how. Don't forget conflict. Rule number 5, and my last rule for the day. This kind of goes in with number 4, but it is create suspense. Every page turner needs suspense. And no, your story does not have to be in the thriller, suspense genre, scary mystery genres to use suspense well. You can think of any novel you've ever read in any genre and think about how it kept you reading. 9 times out of 10, the answer is suspense. So how do you create suspense in a novel? Easiest way to do this is to introduce questions. And that's it. Introduce questions for your characters and they're for your reader, and make sure that those questions are tied to the major conflicts in the story in some way. This way, your reader will keep turning the page to find out the answer and hopefully finish the book and hopefully buy the next book. And there you go. You've got a writing career. So, in conclusion, don't forget the simple things. If I were to boil it down to one line, don't forget the simple things. It is amazing how the simplest ingredients in the recipe are often the most overlooked. Like, if you think about a normal recipe, you've got salt, pepper, water. Most people don't even mention these things. They're taken for granted, assumed that everybody knows about them. But if you're not familiar with the recipe to begin with, you won't know any of the ingredients, including the simple ones. It's hard to teach somebody how to write, and it's really debated if it's even possible at all. And I think I'm going to make a video on that topic later. All of the knowledge you have as a writer, the simplest things can be ignored in favor of the more important things, or what people perceive to be more important, like story structure and stuff like that. Or the simpler things can just be plain forgotten about. Depending on how long you've been writing, the simple things become second nature. So don't overlook the simple ingredients. A lot of the time, those are what makes the best tasting food. So that's it for me. I'll be posting again next week. See ya.